The only way to defuse the situation is by decreasing the presence of the police within the area at the present time.
They want police withdrawn, you see, and I'm not prepared to do that.
Well, you want to get behind us.
Whatever the problems, nothing but nothing justifies what happened on Saturday and Sunday night.
There shall be no support of any kind for the Scarman inquiry.
If the public inquiry can get to the truth, then it will be sorted out.
A public inquiry will be very successful if it is mixed.
You think that could sort out the problems of Brixton, do you?
Yes. But it shouldn't be only one race of people who do the inquiry.
Well, I would hope that those who have called the boycott would reconsider their decision.
Op de soms.
The rioters came from behind the security of their burning barricades to lob petrol bombs, bricks and bottles at the police lines. And suddenly Brixton, a South London area of high unemployment, was under siege. The streets littered with broken glass and rubble and burning cars.
Nobody quite knows why the rioting started, but when it did, about half a dozen policemen were forced by a barrage of bricks and bottles into this cafe here.
They protected themselves as best they could with their truncheons and dustbin lids until the riot shields arrived. As police reinforcements poured in, a van belonging to the Special Patrol Group was attacked and turned over. The officers inside escaped, and some threw stones back at the youths. But at one point, the police had to retreat. And then community leaders tried to calm some of the youths down, but with little success. When they refused to move, one of them was hustled away and taken behind the rioters' barricades. Later, a community leader spelled out to police exactly what the situation was.
They've been drinking, and there's music going there, and there's overturned cars in the streets, there's Molotov cocktails, and if something is not done at the present time, it's going to be a highly explosive situation. And the only way to defuse this situation is by decreasing the presence of the police within the area at the present time, because they see the police as their target.
They want police withdrawn, you see, and I'm not prepared to do that.
Why not? Isn't it? I mean, is that not a reasonable?
Well, no, because I think if we withdraw, then we shall allow them to do as they wish. There's looting going on already, and I'm not prepared to extend that looting.
So we're now in a position of status quo, and it's obviously going to be quite a job clearing this area out. Sam Hall, ITN in Brixton.
To most people, the word Brixton conjures up the image of a black ghetto. In fact, only 1 in 3 of Brixton's population is either Asian or West Indian. 2 out of every 3 are white. Community workers say Brixton isn't black, it's simply poor, and lots of blacks live there because they can't afford to live anywhere else. Brixton's problems are the problems of many inner city areas: unemployment, inadequate housing and poor services. The recession has hit deprived areas like Brixton particularly hard. Community workers insist that it's against this backdrop and a general increased police presence that the troubles must be seen.
Sometime over the past 3 to 4 years, there's been very, very heavy police presence in this area on a number of occasions. Very provocative police presence, may I say, when a number of the clubs, youth clubs, pubs and one thing or another down Railton Road have been raided by the Special Patrol Group. And it's against this sort of backdrop, this sort of unaccustomed high level of policing, which we think was ineffective anyway. It just temporarily drove crime out of the area, as they put it. it didn't actually solve any problems. But it's that presence, that police presence, that's made a lot of the young black community and the young white working class community aware that they're under pressure from police all the time. They feel they're being picked on. And it's against that last night's situation blew up.
There's no denying that Brixton is suffering from a crime wave. The area has 50 to 60 robberies a week, 4 times the average for an area that size. Over the last 3 years, the police tackled the problem with the Special Patrol Group. The crime rate fell, but as it fell, claims from the black community of police harassment rose. Earlier this year, a report by the local Lambeth Council described relations between the police and the community as extremely grave. A community worker in Brixton gives her impression.
I was there in between the 2 barricades because I was there when it started the whole time, and it was all the people in the area. It was the people in the area that were retaliating against the police.
That's black and white?
Black and white people living in the area, because they put up with a lot. In the 7 years I've worked there, you know, there's always doors being kicked in, and I'm surprised this has never happened before.
The police are adamant their increased presence wasn't provocative.
In view of what had happened the previous evening, we would have been neglecting our duty if we hadn't patrolled the area in sufficient numbers to maintain law and order. And we kept a fairly low profile even under those circumstances.
But you just described a considerably increased number of police officers that were in the area yesterday after the problems on Friday evening.
In the area, yes, but a number of those were on reserve at Brixton Police Station in case of problems. We had additional foot patrols out. But that surely is the way that one would deal with this type of situation if you didn't want to raise the temperature in the area too much.
Do police now feel they handle the situation properly?
Yes, under the circumstances. It was a situation that we had to get additional men in before we could be really effective. All we could do was hold the line initially, which we did, and as soon as we had enough men regrouped to take positive action, then we cleared the area.
After the disturbances in the St Paul's area of Bristol a year ago, local council set up an inquiry. It's only just reported, and suggestions for repairing police-community relations remain little more than ideas. In Brixton, community workers say the only way to stop a recurrence of yesterday's trouble is to relieve the unemployment, the bad housing and the poor services. In the meantime, the police have to deal with the consequences. John Underwood, ITN, Brixton.
The police, who had taken a low profile for most of the day, appeared again in strength this evening as groups of youths began to gather and the tension began to rise again. There were some nasty moments, but nothing like the concerted confrontation which we witnessed last night. With so many police present in so many places, there was of course no opportunity for any groups to try to seal off an area. No opportunity therefore to set many cars and buildings on fire. There were still arrests, this one emphasising that this has not been a demonstration of black feeling against whites. Several of the rioters last night, like this one, have been white, and it's clear that the feelings are directed not against whites as such, but against the police. Before the latest trouble began, a calm had settled on the battlefield the morning after. Even so, it was a scene unknown in the United Kingdom outside Ulster since the Blitz. It's clear from the 26 buildings burnt out, and there were about the same number of cars, how much worse a tragedy this has been than Bristol. The damage there was reckoned in hundreds of thousands of pounds. Here it runs into millions. Some doubt whether the damage to relations between the local community and the police can ever be repaired, but even the physical damage will take a long time to put right. The police this morning were visible but not too visible. Behind the scenes, however, they were brimming with reinforcements, waiting for just the sort of incidents that have since taken place. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Sir David McNee, thought the riot was not entirely spontaneous.
We did have, last evening and early this morning, were unconfirmed reports that it wasn't just locals from Brixton, but others from elsewhere had come to help, and that's why I said it wasn't spontaneous, that it was planned. These unconfirmed reports are being investigated now.
You say it wasn't spontaneous, that people had intended what sort of time
Well,
scale to have
I would ask you just to use your imagination. You don't come unprepared if you're carrying Molotov cocktails and other missiles.
The Home Secretary rushed back to the capital and after consultations went with Sir David straight to the area. He was greeted by cries of Sieg Heil. Before the Home Secretary gave his views, Sir David was given the feelings of some of the young blacks.
Believe me, we've got nothing against the older policemen. They're not causing no trouble whatsoever. It's those little young uniform and those little young silly CID men, right? So bring the age up to about 27. All from Germany.
I hope that all will combine to agree that in carrying out the task which was placed on them by this nation, the young police officers last night behaved in a most courageous and upstanding way, and I would like to express on behalf of the whole nation my thanks to them for what they did on that occasion.
Of last night, everyone is agreed on one thing. The riot stemmed from one small incident. The police suspect that what followed was at least partly planned. The local people say it was the inevitable explosion of steam by a community which feels the police have been picking on them recently. The advice they gave to the police was to leave the area. The police refused because that would have meant leaving a no-go area. But the way they slowly gained control last night has attracted considerable criticism from community leaders. To the rioters, it said the police shields were a red rag to a bull and the stones followed. The slow advance of the police allowed cars and buildings to be set on fire in their path. When the police did eventually charge at 9:05 last night, there were several allegations that they used unnecessary force. Michael Oliver, ITN, Brixton.
Well, we are very fortunate here because the only actual damage was the shop front, which, as you can see, it melted due to the heat of the fire of the building across the road. Nothing inside actually was damaged. We're very fortunate. I think it's basically because we operate only machinery and we provide a service, and there's nothing really terribly much to steal because the machines aren't worth a great deal to anybody else.
How much do you reckon it's cost you, though, the plate glass that you had here?
Well, it's insured. I don't know. I should imagine, including the shop front, £2,000 or £3,000, possibly more.
Are you insured for riot damage, which is what this is?
I don't know. I hope so. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I hope so. I don't really know. Loss of business is a totally different thing. That's loss of business and goodwill to our customers who possibly might be a bit worried about coming to Brixton in the future, or certainly for a while anyway, until things calm down.
What happened here?
Yes, on Saturday night, from about 7 till 9 o'clock, the store was looted. All these windows here were smashed. Both sides, that entrance and this entrance, entirely smashed, and the store was looted. Not only was it looted, the store was, somebody tried to burn the store down, quite flagrantly. There's an area here in the store here where it can be seen that turps has been sprinkled underneath here, and even though we've cleared away the merchandise, you can still see the burnt merchandise, all burnt on display here. And above the display are these gas cylinders, and it was deliberate arson to try and burn the store down. There's an instance here, and there's another instance also in the store where it's obviously an attempt to arson it.
Do you know how much you've lost in stock?
At this moment, we've got loss assessors in and we're busy sorting it out. I don't know, but there's quite a lot of stock, a lot of money's involved.
Can you estimate?
It's not right but to do so. I haven't got a clue at the moment. Until we get proper lists done and recording of the damage, I don't know.
What do you think of what's happened?
The promise of a public inquiry was met with enthusiasm, but with conditions. Yes, the inquiry is welcome, but will it take into account the true sense of local feeling and the opinions of all those who might represent it? That is the doubt in Brixton.
I welcome the announcement by Mr. Whitelaw of an official inquiry,
especially since it's being chaired by Lord Scarman, because there are a lot of us in the black communities who have a very high regard for the integrity and judicial approach of Lord Scarman. I have no doubt that that announcement alone will do a lot towards alleviating tension in Brixton tonight.
If the public inquiry can get to the truth, then it will be sorted out. But if they're going to speak the truth, but to get to the truth, you got to get to the people who is really involved.
I think a public inquiry will be very successful if it is mixed, not only on one side. I mean, colored, Indian, everybody help to make the inquiry be successful.
You think that could sort out the problems of Brixton, do you?
Yes. But it shouldn't be only one race of people who do the inquiry.
Well, we welcome an inquiry. We want a public inquiry. But frankly, we just don't want an inquiry that will tell us that there were a lot of youngsters on the streets and there was fighting with the police. We want an inquiry that will go into the reasons why that situation arose. Why is there unemployment in the area? Why isn't there money available? What can we do about it? And that's the sort of inquiry we want.
So tonight they have decided to talk it out at a hall next to the police station. It was hastily advertised as a meeting of the community, promoted by the 2-day-old Brixton Defence Campaign. It was predominantly a meeting of the coloured community, but I was told by others it was a meeting of Uncle Tom's. We were not allowed inside, but at least for the time being, the debate and the arguments have left the streets. Keith Hatfield, News at 10 in Brixton.
Okay, kill it. Running.
Mr. Whitelaw's promise of a public inquiry may have brought about talks among the community leaders in Brixton, but the manifest anger in the community is still very apparent. Keith Hatfield, News at 10 in Brixton.
My car, mate. Speak to me. My car. I'm the one with a Brixton car. Alright? Well, it's
Running, John, I hope. This is your car?
Yeah, that's my car, and that's my Mini.
Why did they set fire to this car?
Well, I don't know. You know what I mean? There was about 300 kids kicking on here. They're all 12, 13, 15, you know what I mean? They come bursting down here. You know, I sort of say...
How did they set fire to it, you know?
Well, I was downstairs there. And that's my office here, you know there. And I was there, and then someone rushed in and said the car is on its side. I said, oh, blind.
Prime Minister, do you accept that there is deep disaffection among many black young people, especially towards the police?
I think there's probably deep disaffection, a number of problems. Whatever the problems, nothing but nothing justifies what happened on Saturday and Sunday night. It is totally and utterly wrong, with all the ways of protest and demonstration and democratic methods we have, that anyone should attempt to take it out on the police or the citizens of the area by turning over cars, looting property, setting it alight, and throwing bombs and missiles at the police. Nothing justifies that, and I cannot condemn it too strongly.
Do you think that high unemployment is a primary cause?
No, I don't somehow think that that's a primary cause. After all, we had much higher unemployment in the 30s, but we didn't get this behavior in any way. I know that among young West Indians, there is a higher rate of unemployment. There tends to be. Many of them are unskilled, and it's not always easy to get a job for the unskilled at the moment, but I don't accept that that justifies what happened in Saturday and Sunday night.
What do you intend to do about high unemployment among young blacks, bad housing, bad environment?
As far as high unemployment among any young people is concerned, the answer is the same. We have stepped up the amount of money and the number of job chances we're trying to give. Over 440,000 this year because there are an unusually large number of school leavers, and that applies to anyone. It doesn't matter whatever your background. If you're a young person and haven't got a job, then we try to find some work experience for you under that scheme. But you know, money has been poured into Lambeth. It's one of the areas where we have what's called a partnership scheme between government and local authorities. This year, some £9 million goes to that. There's quite a high rate support grant into Lambeth. There's a lot of money, I think something like 40 million going on housing this year. So I think it would be a mistake to think that money can solve the problems. Money can't buy either trust or racial harmony. We have to try to go about it in a different way. You must get trust. We've set up almost every known voluntary organisation and institution. They are helped by funds. But trust takes a very much longer time to develop and is very much two-way, and you rely on the leaders of that community to try to get it as much as leaders of the voluntary organisations.
But it hasn't worked. So do you agree with Mr. Enoch Powell in the Commons today that we've seen nothing yet?
I heard him say that, and I thought it was a very, very alarming remark. And I hope with all my heart that it isn't true. And I hope that we can get far more trust and try to work out these problems better than we have. It's quite true that we had Bristol a year ago, but I do stress trust is a two-way business. It only comes with people who want it, who positively want to solve the problems. It only comes with people who really want to live as true and honourable and upright members of society. I don't know quite how to get it, except that we just have to go on working at it, and I do know this. Sometimes too much money doesn't help to solve problems. It causes more troubles. It has to be contact between people, people who really have some kind of aptitude for this work and can get the confidence of the young people. You know, when I was Secretary of State for Education, I hated enormous schools. I thought you learned far more, you got far more trust, you taught far more if you had a much, much smaller school, a much, much smaller group of people, if they're in difficulty in particular, with one teacher.
But there's no trust with the police at the moment, it appears, in Lambeth. I mean, somebody said today that the police in Lambeth were behaving like an army of occupation.
What absolute nonsense, and what an appalling remark, and I condemn the person who made it. Had there been any question of the police withdrawing from Lambeth, as they had temporarily to withdraw from Bristol, they'd have been subject to the gravest criticism. They would have been totally wrong. The job of the police is to protect the citizens, and they did protect the citizens in Lambeth to the very best of their ability, and they were absolutely right to do so. No one must condone the violence, no one must condone the disgraceful events that took place in Lambeth. It should not have happened. They were criminal, and they should never have occurred. And the police's job is to protect the citizens against criminal activity.
I do hope that local organisations representative of the people who live in Brixton will be, one or two of them, represented at the inquiry and able to put their point of view across to me.
But isn't there a danger that these young blacks will think that you're too old, too white, too rich to understand?
They may think I'm too old, they may think I'm too grey. I'm not particularly white, I'm nearer yellow. And as for being too old, I don't accept that for one moment. I am perennially young.
I believe you've already visited Brixton.
Yes, I have.
What did you make of it?
Very sad, the immense damage to property. Very sad indeed. And of course they have bust up what could be a perfectly attractive shopping centre. They've done damage to houses which could be very attractive housing, given money spent on decorations, renewals and repair. But I sincerely hope that my report will set off a new appreciation of the problems of police and of the problems of young communities faced with unemployment, people who feel that their lives are all no place to go and nothing to do.
Finally, Lord Scarman, is there anything you would like to say to the people of Brixton through News at 10?
Give me their cooperation, they will have my sympathy.
As they clear out the smouldering ruins, the debate is now about who pays and for what. The total could be £2 million. A third of Brixton is black, and it was in their area that the substantial damage was caused. Brixton was run down, but never before by a riot. The local council are looking for government compensation for the owners. They also want long-term help to tackle unemployment, bad housing and social services. But after a meeting with the Department of the Environment, Brixton's council leader left empty-handed.
I think that people in Brixton were looking very firmly at this meeting today for some positive results. The fact that there is no positive results coming out of it, the fact there's no commitment from the government, then frankly I think that we are in danger of an aggravation of the situation in Lambeth. People will find that there is no prospect. I came away from a meeting even with the Chamber of Commerce earlier today saying, well, you've got our backing, ask for money, we need it in Brixton. The government has said no commitment.
Well, the first thing is that the government has acknowledged there was a riot, and therefore people who've suffered damage can now claim, and we've made it absolutely clear that we want to ensure that people who've got a right to claim know about that right and can get it in, their claims, within 14 days.
Compensation may be the issue of the moment. The cause of the riots has yet to be resolved. Keith Hadfield, News at 10 in Brixton. St Matthew's Hall, near the front line of the riots in Brixton, was where it was decided not to intensify the confrontation. After a meeting with the Brixton Defence Campaign, it was decided that a march on the police station or the town hall on Sunday would be too volatile. This was agreed after a careful debate between the police and the community leaders.
There are no plans presently existing that we know of or that we are participating in for holding any march, demonstration or rally or meeting of any kind this coming weekend in Brixton or anywhere in connection with Brixton. The second point is this: the overwhelming feeling of the meeting is that there shall be no support of any kind for the Scarman inquiry.
So as they clear St Matthew's Hall here in the centre of Brixton, the Defence Committee say they plan no further demonstrations, but they cannot suggest what the gut reaction in the streets might be. Keith Hatfield, ITN in Brixton.
From the outset, this inquiry has focused on the breakdown in relations between the black community in Brixton and the police in the period leading up to the disturbances last April. In his opening speech, Mr. Robin Ould, who's leading counsel for the inquiry, suggested Lord Scarman might wish to consider whether the police had lost the support of a large section of the Brixton community. Mr. Ould described the resentment among black people at what they saw as the excessive and indiscriminate use of police powers against them. The police, for their part, felt they had to deal with a rapid increase in the level of crime in Brixton, by far the highest in London. This led to Operation Swamp in the week before the disturbances, with 100 officers patrolling the streets of Brixton with intensive use of their powers of stop and search. This created an atmosphere of considerable tension, said Mr. Ould, and he suggested the inquiry should consider whether the conduct of this operation had contributed to the subsequent disturbances. Well, over the next few days, both police and members of the black community will be giving evidence to this inquiry. Others have refused. They say the inquiry is pointless, set up only for cynical reasons of state. And before the inquiry, I put this point to Lord Scarman.
Well, first of all, I think there are plenty of reasons of state which are not cynical but sensible. I think it was set up for reasons of state, but not for cynical reasons of state. And the reason of state that it was set up, it was that here was a very serious disorder indeed, causing an immense amount of personal injury, though fortunately no deaths, causing an immense amount of damage to property. And it really was the duty of government to see what it was that led to this breakdown of law and order, and to see whether proposals could emerge which could improve the situation in the future. So I think there are sound, not cynical, sound reasons of state for the inquiry.
But will witnesses from the black community be treated on the same footing as members of the police force, for instance, who are, after all, have arrested many people from the black community for the disturbances?
They will be treated on exactly the same footing. Judges are no respecter of persons, and we've been dealing with police and other witnesses for the whole of, when I say we, I mean judges have been dealing with police and other witnesses for the whole of our professional career. I have no difficulty in assessing a witness, and the fact that he wears a blue uniform or a pair of jeans doesn't matter a bit.
So you hope that the boycott that has been proposed will fizzle out and that everybody will give evidence?
Well, I would hope that those who have called for the boycott, would reconsider their decision. I think they will be watching keenly to see the way the inquiry is conducted, and I don't blame them for that. But if I can conduct this inquiry in a way which commands confidence, then I think they could reasonably be asked to reconsider their boycott. One thing I'm quite sure, that the boycott does not enjoy anything like majority support. And I say that not on the basis of a belief, but on the basis of the volume of evidence which has already been furnished to me, some of which, of course, is highly relevant and will be called.
Well, you want to get behind us.
Lord Scarman at the Domino Club in Brixton a year ago. At the time, in his report on the riots, he warned that racial disadvantage is a fact of British life, and unless urgent action was taken, would become an endemic disease. A year later, does he think urgent action has been taken?
I see action being taken over a broad range. I think urgent action has been taken and is being developed in the police force. I think urgent action is being taken in the field of education. I think that perhaps the same urgency is not yet evident in attempting to overcome racial disadvantage in the sphere of job opportunities. Indeed, I think it is in employment that the main trouble persists.
In Brixton a year on, some of Lord Scarman's recommendations have been put into practice. The Police Community Liaison Group meets regularly, but not everyone believes such consultation is the real answer. And Lord Scarman's fears about jobs are certainly true. Unemployment amongst young blacks is 28% up on last year. It's now approaching 2,000. And economic confidence in Brixton is at an all-time low. The market used to be packed, now it's nearly deserted, and businesses are closing daily. 3 weeks ago, the council demolished houses on what's known as the front line, and violence flared again. These houses were believed to be the centre of illegal drinking and drug trafficking. The crime rate has risen dramatically. Violent street robberies have increased by 40% in the last 3 months. The police have responded by putting more constables on the beat, local officers whose job is to patrol the Railton Road area, get to know local residents and deter street criminals. The Police Community Consultative Group meets fortnightly. Father Walker is the chairman. Does he feel relations have improved?
I think they have a little, to the extent that the most lawless people are much more isolated than they once were. It was at one time more easy to think that the frontliners in Brixton, for instance, were representing the black community as a whole, but there's less and less is that true now. In fact, a lot of black people are very keen that some of the lawlessness is not done in their name any longer.
How much of the improvement do you think is due to Lord Scarman's recommendations following his inquiry into the disturbances?
Well, I think the report is a milestone in race relations in Britain. For the first time, I think black people could say that at that level in the nation's councils, their situation has been understood, and that it's led to a great deal of concentration of the nation's mind on matters of race relations, and I think the police have taken a great deal of it to heart.
About 40-45 people in this community speak to us every fortnight, tell us the problems, we tell them our problems, and we come to some sort of agreement about the way we should solve them.
Do you think that Lord Scarman's recommendations, which brought about this police-community liaison, have worked effectively in this area for the police and the community?
For this particular area, enormously so. It's rather nice to share a problem rather than to have it alone. And this is what it's done for Brixton. He was a very wise man.
What I think Scarman has done is to cause people to think a bit more deeply about the implications of good or bad police-community relations. But the effect, the final effect, is something that's got to be worked for, and we're just at the beginning of that process.
There are many people, however, both black and white, who believe that Lord Scarman's report, far from solving any problems, has actually damaged race relations, not only in Brixton, but throughout the country.
Principally, he refused to recognize the fact of institutionalized racism in the society. And we're not talking about racial prejudice or laissez-faire discrimination. We're talking about the racism that inheres in the structures of the society, in the National Health Service, in schooling, in employment, in housing, and so on. Once you do not recognize institutionalized racism, then even the progressive liberal recommendations that Lord Scarman made become ineffectual. For instance, when he talks about positive discrimination or positive action, it becomes, in fact, harmful, because he removes it from the context of institutionalized racism. He's saying that there must be special favors visited on black peoples. Now, this is not how we see it. If I can use a metaphor, what he's saying is, let us give crutches to black people because they are crippled. What we are saying is, don't cripple black people in the first place.
And what effect does that have on the white community?
Well, the white community, quite justifiably on the face of it, believes then that these are special privileges meted out to the black people, to the black working class in particular. And therefore, a white backlash, if you like, let's say.
You have also been accused of causing a white backlash in your report on the other side by perhaps appearing to give too much to the minorities and suggesting too much in the way of positive discrimination. Is that a fair criticism, do you think?
No. I think that the racial disadvantage, I'm not now talking about racial prejudice, I'm talking about the fact of racial disadvantage, is so serious that positive action is needed. Of course, some will object strongly, but to say that the report has created any backlash, no.
Do you think that your recommendations with regard to policing have in effect restricted the police and caused more problems with lawlessness in certain areas?
Yes, I'm told that, and of course one accepts what one's told unless one disbelieves it, and I don't disbelieve it. I think this is part of the police dilemma. They've always got to balance their preventive function against their enforcement function. It will always be difficult, but policemen are paid to exercise judgment, and they have to live with their dilemma as other professions do.
It's now a year since your report was published. Looking back on that year, on balance, do you think a great deal has been achieved or not enough, perhaps?
I think there has been substantial achievement. I don't think it's for me to say that is enough or not enough, or great or small. I'm prepared to say that there has been substantial achievement over a broad range of activities government, police, and social. I think there's an immense amount to be done, and I think there's going to be a need for constant vigilance by all of us. Racial prejudice can be hidden and unconscious, and it can afflict every one of us.